Hello everyone, Comrade Snake here. We are taking a look at The Dark Sands, A War in North Africa, 1940-1942 by Ted Racier, published 2018. I don't think that's... Is that a second edition? I don't know. Well, anyway, this is what I have. This is my probably somewhat surprising playthrough is going to be this time around. Doing the full campaign, which I've never actually done before, but I did a few scenarios to kind of remember how to play this and kind of get back in the groove of it. I had played some scenarios when I first got it years ago. Now, probably maybe 2 years ago, 3. I'm not exactly sure, but it's been a while. I didn't get it right away when it first released, but yeah, sometime after. So let's get a little bit about the game before we get too far into it. So set up for turn 1 for the full campaign scenario. So this has technically 3 maps. So we have the east map over here with Egypt, El Alamein, Alexandria up there at the very cool map edge. Goes over, kind of skips a little bit of space. Then we get to the central map, which is actually a different scale too. Even things move differently. There's different movement values and stuff for stuff here. Roads. We got Tobruk, the Tobruk Fortress up there. There's special rules for the Axis building a bypass road if the Allies control Tobruk and they have it surrounded. There is a railhead marker that starts actually on the east side and then moves this way. The British can build towards Tobruk to help move forces around. We got reinforcement tracks all up at the top, VP trackers, everything going on. It's a lot of stuff on the actual board itself. And then we got the west map over here, which has Libya, basically we got Benghazi and then all the way down to El Agihila, and it covers most of the important sections of this side of the North African War. Obviously, it doesn't cover anything in Tunisia or anything like that. That's a whole different thing. This is basically covering all of the war on this side of Libya and Egypt, up until pushing Rommel into I was going to say Serencia. Am I getting them mixed up? There's Serencia and Tripolitania that make up Libya, and I might be mixing the two up. I can't remember. Anyway, basically pushing him into West Libya. Yeah, so that's how it goes. So this is a chit pull random system. So I have the chits for turn 1 in there. I'll just be pulling those out of this bowl. There are also like interrupt chits. So for the start, the British are the only one with 1 O'Connor, which also lets him move all of his forces and attack in the same go, which is not necessarily typical. So it's usually one or the other. So there's move and combat, and there's also these half moves or combat, which you can do at -1. So special chits will let you do that move and attack at the same time, but generally for regular chits you have to do one or the other. So that's how it kind of goes at the tempo of doing this. As you can see, so for tracing supply, which is very important in this, there's roads, there's the railway, although it's technically not actually built until the railhead marker gets through there, and then there's these dotted lines are trails. So supply tracing moves through all of that, plus some overland hexes that it can go a little bit, move a little bit. We got spots of rough terrain. We have wadis, which give a penalty to attack across. We have these big encarpments, which you can't move across or anything. They're just basically, for all intents and purposes, cliffs, if you want to call them that, whatever. But the point is they're uncrossable. We got, at the start, it's only Italians on the Axis side, making up of these kind of defensive lines. And you can see we have like garrisons which can be dropped. There are asset tokens like air forces that can be used on certain parts of the map to give extra combat factors. You can set up fortified boxes, which give you a defensive bonus and help repel tanks / panzers. which can, with panzers and tanks, get bonuses for fighting units that don't have any anti-tank points, basically, which fortified boxes give you 1, and you can have more that depending on what you have in your stack. Excuse me. All of this to say that I am doing this campaign, and it should be a lot of fun, and it plays relatively quickly. Really, especially in the beginning, really high tempo. So that can make it a little bit tricky as far as how am I going to film it, because lots can happen in one turn, especially in the beginning. So, I don't know if I'm going to do it just post-turn. I might, because of how fast things can move, especially these early ones, I'll probably do more like almost updates per action chit, or maybe 2 action chits, depending on what exactly goes down. And that'll pretty much, I'm going to play by ear, I guess, to kind of pretty much cover as much as I can that's interesting. Put it that way. So another thing that's really interesting about this game is there's a concept called extended movement, which is whenever you have full movement points that are allowed. So in other words, you can't do this on a half movement chip. But you can basically move a unit as far on the board as you want, within very certain restrictions. You cannot move through an enemy zone of control. You can't move adjacent to an enemy unit for any reason, because there are some units that don't exert zones of control. You can't double up on spaces, which I think is just to prevent. Excuse me. Oh, sorry, I'm sleepy. Just to prevent, I think, shenanigans with zipping a unit around like in a zigzag or something. But I'm not totally clear exactly what that rule is, other than that someone can't indefinitely delay the game, I suppose. And then, so that means that covering that extended movement works on these desert trails. Now, you have to roll for a disruption when you cross certain things, like crossing map edges and stuff. But point being that you do need to cover these deep desert areas, or your enemy can literally just go zip right across and around and into your back lines and really cause havoc. So you do have to maintain a line on the coast and in the desert. And so if you're falling back or pressing across, you needed to be doing both. So that's kind of an interesting way to make sure that you are doing something to try to hold a deep interior line. And also why El Alamein could be so aggravating for the Axis, because it's only 4 hexes deep. 4 hexes deep, no matter how you try to slice it. So that makes it a much easier area to actually defend. If you have superior British troops, you can really just build a thick line that the Germans would have to try to attrition across, which is probably not going to be in their favor, but that's more for another time. Combat and everything's pretty straightforward, not a whole lot of weirdness going on. If there's anything else special that comes up, I'll talk about it during the actual turn. But it's a fairly straightforward game, not a lot of weirdness or strange cases. It's just kind of remembering little bits and pieces of rules that are relatively simple, but the actual battlefield, and especially with that extended movement rule and everything, it makes maneuver really important. And because it's a random chit draw, you can get very different scenario, like sequence of events, even in short scenarios like the very first one, which is just like the 1 to 2 turns. I think it's Operation Compass. That you can get wildly different results just depending on the chip draw. So that'll be kind of interesting to see. I guess I should probably say chip draw is like there's actually a sheet. Tells you what's coming into play each time. I'll talk more about the particular things going on with, say, the Rommel and Navigator chip and all that when they come in. Suffice to say, there's descriptions all in the back here, but we don't really need to go. I guess you can pause and read them if you want. I don't know if there's really much reason to, but you could. And we'll get started on this, and I'll explain. Oh, I guess I should also say it is a victory point game, so it's about controlling victory point spaces. By the end, there is also an automatic victory condition, which is basically effectively controlling every major space on the map and having your enemy out of supply. So, you know, that can also, in theory, happen. We'll see how it goes, but this is going to be the new playthrough, and hope you all enjoy. I'll be coming back with turn 1, and we'll see what the... it's going to be British initiative for the first turn, I think even 2 turns. So we'll see what their first move is as they begin their offensive to drive the Italians out of the North Africa, basically, out of Libya and Egypt.